collapse. It's going to take everything we've got. Some of us are awake to the system, others aren't. This is why we are here as Extinction Rebellion, to open people to what's really going on around us. Our actions generated a huge national response, internationally and publicly. As news spread, our connections with tens of thousands of people around the world had also spread. So they started going down to London, doing protests back in 31st of October 2018, so it's been over a year. And we first started with 100 people, and in the last year or so we've ended up with more than 300,000 people. Things that XR want: the government must tell the truth about how deadly our situation is. It must reserve all policies that are not in line with that position, and must work alongside the media to communicate the urgency of change, including what individuals, communities and businesses need to do. The government enact legal binding policies to reduce carbon emissions in the UK to net zero by 2025, to take further action to remove the excess of the atmospheric greenhouse gases. It must cooperate internationally so that the global economic runs on no more than half the planet's worth by resources per year. By necessity, these demands require innatives a mobilisation of similar size and scope to those who enacted at times of war. We do not, however, trust our government to make the bold, swift and long-term changes necessary to achieve these, and we do not intend to hand further power to our politicians. Instead, we demand citizens' assembly to oversee the changes as we rise to the wreckage, creating a democracy to fit all purpose. We organise in small groups around the world, from every town to city. The groups are connected in a complex web that is constantly evolving as we grow and learn. We work and build a movement that is decentralised and inclusive. The structure aims to empower and act as part of XR, so as long as they agree to follow our 10 corporate principles. We show respect to everyone, to each other, the general public and the government and the police. We encourage non-violence, physical or verbal, or not to carry weapons. So I don't know if any of you saw the other day the guy who climbed on top of the subway and then got beaten up. We have to take that now into action, and he has to now go through a court case due to the fact that he did that, because he caused a violent act, he caused it to be disrupted. So therefore we now have to deal with that. It is our responsibility for anyone who causes any violence. I know recently someone wasted a lot of the emergency services down in London, and as a group, when things like that happen, we have to remove the situation due to the fact it can really impact on us, and we end up with hate groups towards us and people not being able to understand that we are a peaceful group and we're not there to attack anyone or cause any harm. We are together until the government acts on 3 demands for necessary action on the climate change and ecological emergency. The code aims to tell us attract many people. We need to make this movement effective. There are many ways you can help the environment in the workplace. I know you said about the cars some of you use, I can't remember what they're called.
The GMB or the regional officers have hybrid cars.
Yeah, hybrid cars. But say if you're in the workplace, you can use things like reusable cups, or bring a water bottle in, or like a thermal mug, so if you bring in a hot drink in one, you can reuse it, top it up. You can use containers for food, so if you bring it, it's cheaper and it's better for the environment bringing in food rather than buying it, because otherwise it's just going to be a waste of plastic and it ends up building up in our oceans, which pollutes it pretty bad. Try to reduce paper by going electronic, but remember at the same time to turn off plugs after use. So I know a lot of you, I think a lot of it's paper-based to do a GMB. No, electronic-based rather.
I would say we're sort of half and half. We're trying to go more towards electronic. It is something
that's the paperwork for one meeting. It's lasted an hour and a bit.
It is something that as a union we're trying to tackle. I wouldn't say we're succeeding as well as we should be. But it is something we're aware of, and I think everyone in here will agree that we do use too much paper.
Well, I suppose if any paper that you no longer use, you can recycle or reuse it, obviously. Or if you have children, or grandchildren, whatever, it's a really good opportunity to use it as giving them for drawing paper, for making origami. I know when I was little, constantly I'd be given bits of scrap paper just to draw on or just create, because they're at that age where they need the influence of that in a way. Incorporate solar power into work offices at home. I know a lot of people complain that solar power is very expensive, but there are alternatives that you can look into, and a cheaper alternative, because you'll know in the end it's going to help the environment, it's going to help people in my generation create a better future. Because I know myself, due to the fact of the way climate's going at the moment, I don't want children. Due to the fact I don't want to bring them up in a world where, the climate's dying, I don't want to be responsible. I'll have that guilt constantly that my child will be suffering due to actions from my generation and generations before. Energy saving light bulbs are a good one to use, or LEDs, or opening curtains and blinds or whatever. That's a really good one to use because you save a lot of energy and it's cheaper in the long run. Using less tissues this time of year, instead turn to a half piece of tissue or perhaps a hanky. So you usually pick a few out. You can always use one or just half one kind of thing, as you'll save money and you'll save paper at the same time. Or if you're working maintenance or engineering, you end up with boxes. They're really good for kids as well, making castles or cars out of them, or in my case making protest signs, and for other people, or making banners as a whole. If you go shopping after work or before, take a reusable bag, as this has less chance of ending up in an ocean. So a lot of supermarkets now have encouraged it, from the 5p plastic bags going up to 10 to 15p. I know places like Morrison's and Tesco's are on about completely outlawing the whole thing of a plastic bag and just using reusable ones, which are an absolutely incredible idea. Or I know in shops you can get, in Shrewsbury we have a shop in town where you can just take glass containers and fill up your shopping like that, rather than using non-disposable plastics, which is a really good way to save the planet as well. You could create a workspace bulletin to help employees who want to buy, sell or exchange used furniture or clothes. So at my college at the moment, we're currently doing a clothes exchange. So if you've got something you've only worn a few times, you can just take it to this place, exchange it for something else, as when clothes are made, it uses a lot of water, up to 10 litres for a pair of jeans kind of thing. And if you only wear them 3 times, throw them away, what's the point? You may as well give them to charities or completely just recycle them in many ways. Share resources such as books, environmental knowledge or computer programs, which, as I can see, quite a few people do, use your minutes on the computer shared around to everyone, which is really, really good. Because a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to get a book when they're trying to share, when they should be sharing, kind of thing. If you have extra food from work or that you haven't eaten or plan on eating, you can do a snack exchange. So, for example, you bring in an apple one day, and then you're like, oh, I'm not going to eat that. You can give that to either someone else if you want someone else or something. Don't waste water. Turn off taps before, this is for general information. Turning off your taps while you're brushing your teeth. I know some people leave them on while they're brushing their teeth or shaving or washing their face in the morning. Taking shorter showers, or air drying your hair where possible, as hair dryers have a high usage in electricity in the household. Another way is trying Meatless Monday. Cutting back on meats reduces emissions even more than meat consumers put out. We're not led quietly to extinction by the elites or politicians. Controversial campaigning failed. Carbon emissions have increased by 60% since scientists first warned us of an ecological collapse in 1990. We will work together with love, compassion, honour, resilience and peace, using non-violent disobedience in a spirit of all of those who fought for our freedom before us. We call on every single one of you, regardless of your political beliefs, to join us in the fight for survival of life on Earth. We call upon you, to those in power. As a 21st century generation, we have to take back the planet. We were gifted by Mother Nature. We're suffering from generations before us. All we ask of you is to wake up, Take a look what's going on around you for families, your children, for your future generations.